Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to trickle in, but while people are joining, I will give a quick introduction and some just admin information. But my name is Beth. I am a senior account and marketing manager here at Octane AI, and I run these live demos once a month on different topics. And as you can see today, our topic is on auditing and optimizing your quiz. So this is obviously great information for those of you who are Octane customers and have a quiz live. It's obviously a great information for those who are getting their first quiz live to kind of know what to do next. And maybe those of you that haven't signed up for Octane yet and are just curious, again, great information to see how we view and look at quiz and data and all the analytics that come with it. So yeah, today I am joined by a few of my team members, the Octane AI account managers. I have Marina, Pablo, and Leo with me. And we're all going to run through kind of like a different section of auditing and optimizing. You'll hear from Leo about quiz placement. I'll talk about engagement stats. Pablo is going to speak on results pages. And Marina is going to wrap it all up with how to use our internal tools to kind of put all of the pieces together that we talk about. So yeah, one thing to note is we have the Q&A box open. So feel free to ask questions and we will get to those questions at the end. There will be time for answering those questions live. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna kick it on over to Leo first to talk about quiz placement.
All right. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you here. So, quiz placement. This is usually the first thing I tend to look at when auditing a quiz. Even if you have a great quiz, even if it's the best quiz you could create, it won't perform if it's not visible. You need to make sure it's visible, it's easy to find, be it if you're promoting on your website, through ads, through emails, whatever it is, it needs to be easy to find. What we find is obviously where it is placed changes how it performs. There are a number of ways you could place your quiz. The placement mainly drives first how visible it is, the start rate of your quiz. So if you get more qualified traffic, you tend to have a higher start rate versus less qualified traffic. You have a lower rate of people who actually start a quiz after getting to the page. And the more relevant entry points you have, the more qualified quiz starts you have, and thus you have a higher likelihood of getting people to convert or provide their email, subscribe to your emails as well, or SMS, for example. So on the next slide, you'll see a few examples of quiz placement. Again, just like I mentioned, there's a number of ways that you could place your quiz. You can do them through emails, you can do them on your website, through pretty much every page that you have, the homepage, pop-ups, product pages, collections. These examples here, they're some of the main examples we've been seeing lately, some of the main placements that we've been seeing lately. So we have a homepage banner on the top, a navbar link on the bottom, and on the right side on the mobile version over there, that's a pop-up which you can use either as a welcome pop-up or even to try and prevent people from leaving your website. You can use that as an exit intent pop-up, something like, if you haven't found the right product yet, or if you're about to leave, take this quiz and find what's right for you. So these are the examples here. And speaking about how that actually impacts the performance, on the next slide, I've actually prepared an example from a real client that we have who tried the same quiz, the exact same version on 3 different placements at the same time. So they had a welcome pop-up, a navbar link, and a homepage banner. What they found over time was the homepage banner drove the highest revenue. It was actually 6 times higher than the navbar revenue. It also delivered the strongest conversion rate. It was about 5% higher than the navbar and pop-up conversion rates. And the completion rate was actually very different by placement. So it shows that people, depending on where they come from to the quiz, they'll have different levels of intent to complete it, or they'll experience different friction levels. Takeaway here is placement does impact who starts the quiz, how far they get, and the likelihood of them converting or even subscribing to email. But the tip that I give if you have your quiz on multiple placements is always optimize it with small tweaks. So for example, if you have the same quiz on a pop-up and on a navbar link, you should ideally try to make the pop-up version more direct. You should make it faster so it's easy to complete it within the pop-up. You don't have to stay so long within that pop-up part. Or if you have the same quiz for organic and paid audiences, you should also make some changes based on the source to make sure that it's relevant to both of those audiences. And that way you'll get the most of your quizzes. So that's pretty much it about quiz placement, and I think we can move on now.
Awesome. Thank you, Leo. I'm going to jump in and talk about engagement stats, which are essentially your questions inside of your quiz, whether that's an actual question or you have explainer screens, email opt-in pages, things like that. So engagement stats inside your analytics is a good place to look, where you can see how users are engaging with your quiz and also if you are losing them at any point and if they're dropping off. So the two kind of key stats for engagement, for the engagement stats section, is to look at the drop off rate, if anybody is dropping off on a specific page, and then your answer patterns. So this is going to tell you how people are answering that question. And this can be two things, right? It can be just specific data. If it's a question that there's not a lot of drop off, then it's a great way to just analyze data and see how your customers are engaging with that specific question. What's their flavor profile? How old are your customers? Things like that. But if you do have a lot of drop off on a specific question, then the way that the answer patterns are working can give you a lot of information. Like, are there too many questions or too many answer options on this question, or is there not enough answer options? So those are the two kind of key pieces of information that I would look at when looking at engagement stats. So I am going to share a different screen for this section so we can talk through where to find the engagement stats. So when you're inside of your quiz dashboard and you click on the name of the quiz, you're going to find your analytics page. And specifically for engagement stats, we're really kind of looking at this piece of data, so completion rate, because that is telling you how many people are landing on your result page. So you want to take a look at the completion rate to kind of see if the engagement is suffering in a way, or if people are engaging and landing on your result page. So when you scroll down past those charts, you're going to see this engagement stats section. And this is all of the information in your quizzes, like I mentioned earlier, intro pages, actual questions, email opt-in page, and even the loading, like calculating your results. If you have that, that's going to have engagement stats as well. So when looking at these questions, you want to look at the drop-off rate. That's going to tell you the most where people are dropping off. If you have a low completion rate number, you can really see the drop-off rate and see what kind of questions are inhibiting people from moving forward. One thing to keep in mind in any quiz, the first page of any quiz and the email opt-in page are always going to have a higher drop-off than the rest of your questions in your quiz. And I say first page because that could be an intro page that has no question, or it could be the first question of your quiz. So keep that in mind when you're analyzing the data and the drop-off rates. But there's always room for improvement even on those two pages. So you want to take a look and see what the drop-off rate is doing. You can see average time spent on that page. Maybe there's too much information on that page. It's taking too long. You can see how people are answering by the answer options over here, if people are going back, things like that. So the engagement stats really gives you a clear insight into where people are having trouble, where people are struggling with your quizzes, or where they're not struggling and that they're getting through the quiz. So I do want to give one more example, kind of how I would look at engagement stats. So I'm going to share this again. So I had a client who asked me to audit their quiz, and I looked at it, and it was at a 6.24% completion rate. So the first thing I did was I looked at the engagement stats, and I saw that the first two questions of their quiz had the first two pages, one was an intro page and one was an actual question, had the highest number of drop off. So I just want to kind of audit it live with you. I made a demo version. So this is a demo version of a quiz, but what I do after I find the drop-off rates and see that there, are a few questions that are high, I actually take the quiz myself to see what's going on, what it looks like from a customer's perspective. So we're gonna just do that through the preview. And so we can see the first page is an intro, take our 60-second quiz to find the perfect piece of jewelry to add to your collection. And then we have the what are you shopping for page. So originally this quiz had a let's move on after 2 seconds. So you can see that when we do that and we preview it, I'm looking, take our 60-second quiz, and I can't finish. So that was the first thing I noticed. And then the second page had very large images for the answer options. So I was only seeing 2 answer options instead of all 4. So it might not be like the hardest things. You might not think that like small changes like that have a big impact, but you really want to make sure that you're taking the quiz from a customer's perspective and kind of putting yourself in that position and seeing like, is there too much information on this first page? Can I get through the information before it moves me forward? Changing this from moving after 2 seconds to a mouse click made a big difference and allows people to actually choose that they want to continue on in this, quiz journey. And then making it easier for the customer to see all of the answer options on their screen, as opposed to making them scroll down and having too large of images and them not know that they live there. So 2 little tweaks that we made in this quiz. And when doing that, it increased the completion rate to 82%. So again, a lot of times, a lot of these tweaks are super simple, small things that don't require a lot of work. It was a simple click of a button and the simple click of changing the size of images that increased our completion rate from 6% to 82%. So yeah, lastly, just on my little section, this is kind of a 4-step approach you can use when you're looking at engagement stats. Flagging, identifying those questions with the high drop-off rates or maybe a skewed answer distribution. You're going to diagnose, you're going to take the quiz like you are a customer and determine whether the issue is copy, UX, question order, or your logic is potentially broken or doesn't make sense. Then you're going to want to test it, making one change at a time or a couple small changes and seeing how the data performs is key. You don't necessarily need to make 5, 6, 7 changes all at once. And then repeating regular audits, keeping it performing at its best. You want to make sure that you're constantly updating your quiz to align with your website. Did you rebrand? Do you have new products? Making sure all of that is updated in your quiz as well. So yeah, I'm going to kick it over to Pablo, who is going to speak on the results pages.
Thanks, Beth. Hey, everyone. So one of the things we hear about a lot from brands, and one of the main reasons brands consider implementing a quiz on the site, is to increase the conversion rate. And a lot of times what brands will do is they will have a big missed opportunity on the result pages by only showing, here are your recommended products, and then showing either 1 to 5 SKUs. And there's not a lot of context there. So there's not really a lot of confidence coming from the customer's perspective that the brand understands what they're going through. And so if you really want to think about the result page, it's almost like the prescription for the diagnosis that comes from the quiz questions and answers. So it's really important to build that trust on the result page. So now if you want to go to the next page, Beth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly walk you through a quiz example from a brand that we work with that I think does a really, really great job of creating a consultative-like approach on the result page. And this is in the supplement space. So what you're seeing now is the top section of the quiz result page. So it's the first thing the customer sees after they opt into the email. And what you're seeing now is a sense of like an emotional hook saying, we hear you, your concerns are valid, we understand what you're going through, and you're in the right place. And in this example, the brand even created a specific video for the quiz from the founder that says, thank you for taking our quiz. Here's your personal wellness toolkit. And they even explain what they're going to see as they scroll down the page. So this is kind of a really best in class example. You don't have to do a video asset. You can just do it via text, but this is the sort of way you want to think about the result page. And at the bottom of this section, you're seeing that they are reiterating to the customer, hey, you told us that you're struggling with skin, hair, and nail health. And then also your secondary concern is sleeping support. So this is, again, kind of adding that trust factor into the quiz and coming off as like an expert. And if you want to go to the next section. So now you're shifting from the emotional validation portion of the result page to more of a structured buying guide. And so what you're seeing on the left is that hero recommendation that supports the primary health concern of skin, hair, and nails. You're also seeing some additional product information in the description section, which again adds to the expertise aspect. And then there's a secondary upsell kind of cross-sell recommendation that supports their secondary health concern on the right. So whether you're doing a supplement brand where there's gonna be one hero product and maybe one additional upsell product, or maybe you're, let's say, a hair care brand where your main hero product is like a regimen of like 3 to 5 products, right? Like a cleanser, or sorry, a shampoo, a conditioner, and then maybe like a mask or a treatment product. You can still have a secondary block for upsell or cross-sell recommendations that are maybe a little bit more evergreen. So if you're a hair care, you could do like a brush or a travel bag or a towel. So those products, right, really aim to improve the experience of those main hero recommendations. So you really want to cross-sell and upsell intelligently and make it feel curated and not more of like a promotion. And now going to the bottom section, which is the last portion here. This last section is really about reinforcing and removing doubt from the customer. So again, really nailing it home for them. And there's a couple things that you can add here. So we see a lot of product education videos. So let's say if you're skincare or hair care, how to use, that could be really important there. Or before and afters and testimonials. You could do brand FAQs, or even something as simple as like a shipping and return reassurance. Removing that doubt and adding to that final layer of confidence can really help get those additional conversion rates. And that is it for my section.
Thank you so much, Pablo. Hi, everyone. So now that obviously we've gone through a lot of really interesting insights to really make sure that you understand how your quiz is performing, that it has the best placement, that your results pages are as highly converting as possible. The next best thing that you can do is A/B test. And the reason for that is because, once you've identified all of those different things that you may want to improve, you really want to focus on what is the best version of this quiz that I can show to my customers. And the best way of knowing that is with data. So OxyAI has A/B testing capacities. You can A/B test up to 4 versions of the same quiz, of different quizzes. As I said, to truly understand with data which version is the best for your customers. But before you start A/B testing, the most important thing is, after all that auditing process, really narrow down your focus and really understanding, what do you want to start testing? What do you need to improve? Is it, do you want to improve your completion rates, your conversions, your start rates, the number of emails that you're capturing? So the first step is setting, that focus, then really setting one experiment at a time, because, sometimes brands try to change 5 different things, run an A/B test, and they don't really know which one of those 5 changes is the one that is working the best. So you really want to focus on one change at a time. And then the simplest thing is just give it enough time to run, to get data from it. We normally recommend anything to 2 to 3 weeks to get good results, but if your quiz is not getting as much traffic, that might even be, after a month. Some brands can see very significant results with a very clear winning variation within 1 week. So, this will depend more or less on the traffic that your brand has, how much traction that quiz specifically is getting, but roughly between 2 to 3 weeks is the ideal. Now, I'm going to walk you through some different experiments that you can run depending on the different goals. So, for example, if you want to improve your completion rate, as Beth was explaining earlier, the best point is looking at the friction points where a customer is dropping off. And different tests that you can run there is by changing the number of questions. Sometimes a longer quiz might work better, a shorter version of the quiz might work better. You also can test the order of the questions. Some brands start their quizzes with questions that maybe are not as relevant to getting a product recommendation at the end, or that the customer feels that is more information that the brand wants to gather rather than a question that is important for them for getting results. So, changing the order of the questions can have a huge impact on how well that quiz is performing, and how many customers are getting to the end of that quiz. And then you can test things like adding additional answers. Sometimes a question might have different answers, but perhaps customers are getting stuck there because there's not an additional answer for them that fits their situation at that point. Think of a hair care brand, right? That, is like, what is your biggest hair concern? And maybe there is the one that I have right now is not on that list. So just even additional options that you might be missing if that question has a really high drop-off rate, or even sometimes adding something like other, or I'm not sure, anything to really get customers going to the next question, and that question not being a big friction point for them. And then you can even change things how the questions are phrased. Sometimes, it can be a little bit confusing. So you really need to understand, can I phrase this in a different question that is going to give more clarity to customers? And then lastly, using different formatting. Sometimes A/B testing whether a specific question is going to perform better with an image versus a button. That can have a huge impact in the number of people that progress to the next question. Now, moving on to increasing conversion rates, if that is your focus, the biggest improvement that you can make, as Pablo was explaining, is to your results page. Once your customers have gone through the quiz, they land on that results pages, you can A/B test things like the actual product recommendations that you're offering. Looking at that data, you can see what products in the quiz, what products are selling. So perhaps you want to, move some of the products that are bestsellers within your quiz, adding those products to other results pages that maybe you're not considering right now. So that could be an A/B test that you can run, showing a hero product versus a set of products, adding add-ons, even things like adding review and context content, like Pablo was explaining explainer videos, things like that. And even A/B testing, adding personalized copy. With Opt-in, you can now use our AI tools, Smart Properties, Smart Copy, our HTML blocks, and AI agent to create really, really tailored messages for your customers when they land on those results pages. So A/B testing, if you're not sure if that's going to work for your customers, A/B testing it is the best way to know if that's actually going to be a good idea or not. Then if you want to improve start rates on your quiz, things that you can A/B test is, having an intro page versus jumping straight to the first question. Whether you want to use an incentive. If you're using an incentive to capturing emails, you might want to put a reference to that in the first page so customers know, okay, if I start this quiz, I'm actually going to get a discount. That is a great way of increasing those start rates. But then you can even A/B test the copy of that intro page. You can add a sense of timing into that. So, messaging like it only takes 30 seconds. Anything that you can experiment on that first page when you're first capturing that user's attention to really get them to start the quiz is going to make a huge impact into the whole performance of the quiz. And then lastly, if you want to improve the number of emails that you're capturing, emails or SMS in your quiz, things that you can A/B test is making the email the email mandatory versus optional. Some brands see great results making this mandatory. Other brands see better results by just allowing customers to skip and going straight to the results and let them convert at that point. You can A/B test different discounts, sometimes $5 off versus 10% off, and really understanding which one's the best option for your customers. You can A/B test copy around that incentive being saving your results versus getting a free content like a free guide or anything like that. So that email opt-in page, testing different things on that page is really going to help you understand what's going to work best for your customers and how can you get more people to give you their email. And lastly, Beth, if you want to hop onto the next slide, one of my favorite things to test is actually the design of the quiz. Here you can see 6 different versions of the same question for a quiz, and just little things like changing the background, adding images, icons, making buttons, side images, anything that you can test to see which version of the quiz is going to help, along with all the other things that we mentioned, for the actual questions, the copy, the incentives, anything like that. But the design is a key element to that overall customer experience, to make sure that the experience is enjoyable, that is, it's appealing, and it's a fun experience for your customers. So yeah, as I was, walking you through, there's a lot of different possibilities that you can try. The main strategy when it comes to A/B testing is finding your focus, testing one thing at a time, and making sure that you give it enough time to run so you can get very clear results. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Marina and Pablo and Leo, for sharing all of your great tips and tricks. We're going to jump into some Q&A now that we will answer for you guys. So we have a question that says, what does a high drop-off rate on the first page mean? Mine is over 50%. Pablo, looks like you wanted to answer this question live.
Yeah, so normally for like intro pages, we'll see anywhere from like 20 to 30% is kind of the benchmark for like a start rate or sorry, a drop-off rate. If you have more, I would look at maybe the traffic source. So if you're doing the quiz promotion via ads, it's like Meta ads or Google ads, those will tend to be a much higher drop-off rate, like around the 50 mark. So if you're doing that, I think you're fine. You're probably around our benchmark. If there is something where you're just doing on-site promotion, you're getting 50%, that's something where you probably maybe want to A/B test it a bit.
Yeah, totally. Just to kind of back up what he said, I think what Leo spoke to, quiz placement has a lot to do with drop off on the first page. So take a look at that. But also, what is the first page? Is it a question? Are you going straight from the navbar CTA into a question, or do you have an intro page? If you do have an intro page, do you have too much information on that intro page? Is it too overwhelming? Things like that. I also think the naming of your quiz CTA has a lot to do with it. If, for example, you sell clothing and jewelry, and let's say you have a jewelry quiz, but your navbar says quiz, that could be misleading to people that are looking for clothing, but it's a jewelry quiz. So maybe the naming of your quiz CTA could have some effect too on drop off on the first page. So just a couple things to kind of consider.
Just adding to what Beth had mentioned there. Sorry, Beth.
Yeah, go ahead.
What your initial screen is, it really matters. And what I think is really interesting is always to A/B test, because what we see every day is, depending on your industry, depending on the quiz type, your season, it literally depends on so many things that it can either be that your quiz will perform better if it has an initial screen explaining, hey, this is a skincare quiz, it has X many questions, etc., etc. Or some other quizzes might just perform better if you just drop the user into the first question and that's it. If you do the latter, what we can even do is add a simple banner at the top saying, hey, you're on question 1 out of X many, take this quiz and you get X% off as a discount code. So you can always A/B test, and it is something that we heavily recommend because there's no formula to this. It really depends on your industry and so many other variables that it's always worth testing all the different possibilities and making sure that you have the best one for yourself.
Yeah, and the other thing that just came to mind is sometimes brands will put the email opt-in at the front of the quiz, at the top of the quiz, and asking a super personal question like your name or your email is not a great way to start the quiz experience. We recommend having those towards the end of the quiz. Once the customer's already committed to finishing the experience, you'll get a lot more opt-ins on the email that way. So that's also something to consider. It's the type of question that you're asking at the front.
Yeah, awesome. All great points. Any other questions, people? It looks like we're at time, but if you have questions, feel free to shoot them over to us. But just one thing to keep in mind when auditing, your quiz is there's a lot that can go into it. There's a lot of different things. Just that one question that was just asked, there was so many different things that could be, playing into why the drop-off rate. That's the same for internal questions, engagement stats, things like that. So if you have an account manager, if you're on an enterprise plan, feel free to reach out to any of us to help you with auditing and finding those areas of opportunity. If you don't have an enterprise plan, we have a great chat support and customer support team that will also, they know how to audit quizzes and things like that. So feel free to ask our chat or email them as well. And if you're looking to get started, you can email us as well. Our email is enterprise@octaneai.com. We can put it in the chat here so that way you guys have it. But feel free to email us if you want to get started with Octane AI or you have questions. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Auditing is there's a lot that goes into it, and every kind of vertical is kind of different. Everyone, your quiz might be for revenue lift, where someone else's quiz might be for increasing list subscribers, things like that. So all of those things come into play when auditing and optimizing. So yeah, keep that in mind. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We hope you took away some great tips and tricks. Again, feel free to email us if you have any questions, and we look forward to having you at our next live demo next month. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.